Good evening. Welcome to Heat Check, presented by BetMGM. It's a little after 7 o'clock. Betting lines are open. Lineups are almost locked for the Bucks and the Hawks tonight. We are going to break down all of the bets that you need to make in an era of Trae Young uncertainty. I am Chad Millman. I'm joined by Justin Phan. I'm joined by Preston Johnson. We have all the data, all the information, all the picks. Download it for free in the Action Network app. Before we get to the best bets, before we get to the props, before we get to what the public is looking for, Justin, you are our news maven. You have late breaking news on Trae Young.
Yeah, Trae Young going to be a game time decision, according to Nate McMillan. This is not a surprise. He's going to lean towards playing. The reports earlier today was that he went through shoot around, went through walkthrough, looked a lot better, according to his teammate Onyeka Okongwu. I think he's just going to go through warm-ups, make sure everything is okay, and then give it a go. So wouldn't really read too much on the game time decision tag, and would really be surprised if he doesn't at least try to play at the onset of this one.
Well, look, some people are reading into the game time decision tag because there are books that took it off the board. And so when it comes back up, let's say Preston, he is not playing. What do you put that line at? It was at about 7. The Bucks were favored by 7 before the line came down and before the news on him being a game time decision. What do you make of it if Trae Young is not playing?
So I think the preface for all of this is the fact that I think the current market, the books that do have it up, it's basically 6.5 now across the board. They're already kind of accounting for the possibility Trae Young doesn't play. Remember, just in game 3, this line was 4.5 or 5. So now the fact that it is 6.5, I think that's at least accounting somewhat the fact that he could just miss the game entirely, or that he's just not 100%, which we saw in that fourth quarter of game 3, and the Bucks ended up running away with it. My personal projection, assuming he plays, is closer to 4.5. So, I mean, I actually kind of lean the way towards the Hawks. If he can get the 6.5 and he's a go, 9. I think this is more like 9 if he doesn't play. So I think maybe some people would think it would move up to double digits. I don't think it's going to quite get there because the fact that they are already accounting to some degree that Trae's not 100% or may not play.
All right. So one follow up here. You say you have it closer to 4.5 if he plays, but books are accounting for him potentially being injured. Do you not add on some points or adjust a little bit based on the fact that he might not be 100%?
So I actually think Justin may do something similar to when it's hard to know, like as a better, and I try to stay away in general, and we'll get to this more as we kind of progress in the show. When there's a lot of uncertainty, and especially for an impact player like Trae Young, I don't want to go crazy, and maybe I just stay away entirely. But what I tend to do is, Trae Young maybe has a projected usage of X% or how many minutes he's going to play, and rather than try to guess what like 80% Trae Young equals, I'll maybe lower his usage rate so that it just kind of goes off and divvies off into some of the other players that I project to play in the game. Or maybe I'll even just lower his minutes. So it's going to be more of the Lou Williams and Kevin Huerter minutes, which obviously isn't going to project out as well for Atlanta. So that's how I kind of, tackle it. And I tend to be more cautious. I don't want to be too extreme. If I did like 50% Trae Young, then my number is going to be far off. So I try to, respect what we know, and that's that he's trying to play. He's going to give it a go, and he's a competitive guy, so I imagine he's going to try his best. And we'll probably know right off though whether or not he's 100%.
That is a very interesting way to look at it. I had never thought of it that way. Let's get to the next segment. You foreshadowed what's going on. Betting is believing. Our first best bet of the night. Preston,
I just said it's scary, and I'm not betting this obviously officially until we find out that Trae's a go. When he's announced to go, if it sits around 6.5 still, which would surprise me some, I think it's going to move pretty quickly. But if you can still get a 6.5, it's too many. I think you have to just trust that we're going to get a Trae Young that can do what he's done in the past, and he's effectively beat up on the Bucks regardless, and he hasn't even been too hot from 3, but the way that they defend him with drop coverage, I think bodes well. And then just from a sheer market perspective, look, in game 1, and Bogdanovich was somewhat questionable in that game and wasn't 100% himself, but that spread was just 8.5. So if we're getting a 6.5 or even a couple more 7s still exist out there on the Hawks side, and now they're at home, they're not in Milwaukee in game 1. I think it's just too drastic of an overreaction from a sheer market perspective. Again, you maybe need to account to some degree that Trae's not 100% when he goes, but either way, I still project this 4.6 is my exact projection. So if it went down to 5, I think that's probably fair. But if you can get the 6.5 or 7 and Trae's playing, I think it's a good bet. It's ugly, but it's value.
It's ugly. It's disgusting. I can't believe you would tell people to do that. Justin Phan, What are you thinking right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna go on this Trae Young tip and go Hawks team total under 105.5. And one of the big takeaways from game 3 for me was how the Bucks adjusted their defensive coverage. They've adjusted their defense each game since getting torched in the opening game of the series, playing that straight drop coverage. They switched a lot more in game 3. They switched around 45% of the Hawks ball screens, up from 32% in game 2. And that results in the Hawks running a lot more ISOs, running a lot more post ups. And the pace of that game 1 to game 2 is around 105, 100 and a half, 102. It fell all the way to 93 in game 3. So I like that for the overall under of this game, specifically for the Hawks. And we talked about the health of Trae Young, Bogdanovich. I don't think we're factoring in the risk of aggravation for Trae Young in this game. If he comes in, he isn't 100%, he tweaks it again, he doesn't feel like his normal self, there's a possibility he sits out the second half or doesn't play late or has his minutes curbed significantly. So not only do we need to account for him not being 100%, that needs to be factored in as well. So I feel a lot better about the Hawks in general. If Bogdanovich was healthy, he's really their safety valve, that guy who would step up as a secondary ball handler, create offense and give them a shot in the arm and take a lot of the pressure off Trae. But he's basically been playing on one leg, shooting just 25% from the field in the series, 25% from 3. Moved a little bit better in game 3, but still clearly not his normal self. And last thing I want to touch on is how bad this Hawks offense is without Trae Young on the court, or even with him limited. We saw that down the stretch of game 3. They only scored 4 points in the final 5 minutes and 52 seconds of that game. Young won't be able to have that same explosion going downhill, sparking the transition. So just expect a similar type pace in game 4 that we saw in game 3, hovering around the mid 90s. That should be good for the Hawks team total under.
All right. So look, I think we are going to double up, my friend, because I am also going on the Hawks team total under 105.5. I will take your foundation and I will layer on some entirely different stats. Number one, this number is basically what the Hawks have averaged throughout the playoffs. First series against the Knicks, they were about 104. Against the Sixers, they were just shy of 108, and now they're at 103 against the Bucks. But there's one outlier here. Game 1 against the Sixers, they were at 128 points. That is skewing the entire average. In fact, in 9 of 15 games so far this postseason, they have been under the 105. So take everything you're saying, add in those two factors. Plus, I will reiterate, Trae Young hobbled, game time decision, even if he is playing, probably not as explosive. Bogdanovich also hobbled, hasn't been as effective, injured with his injury. So now you're talking about 2 of the 3 best scorers. Kevin Huerter is not going to score 50 points tonight. He is not going to hit 17 trays. Okay. So to me, this feels like the no-brainer of the bets, and what is actually a pretty difficult slate because there is so much uncertainty. So Phan, you and I together, my friend. And that's the way it should be. Walking off into the sunset like that. All right. Let's go spin the wheel. We got some player props. Here's what happens in this segment, folks. We got a bunch of players and their totals set in a wheel. We're going to spin the wheel. I'm going to ask Preston. I'm going to ask Phan. I'm going to kick it to myself. Random selection. You do not know what's coming, guys. You got to make a choice depending on the spin. Evan Abrams, spin that wheel, please. Pat Connaughton. Points, rebounds, assists, 11.5. Preston Johnson, you're up first.
Okay, so this one, maybe it's a little bit of a hedge against if anyone actually wants to bet Atlanta, which it seems like the general consensus is no one wants to touch Atlanta. The fact of the matter is that Pat Connaughton last game, which by the way, I probably owe him an apology because I've always kind of harped on him and Bud playing him more than DiVincenzo in past seasons and playoff runs. Like he has a plus 25 and 32 minutes off the bench. This last game, this Giannis at the 5 small ball lineup has been fantastic. I anticipate Bud won't take the foot off the pedal, right? Like they need to win this game. They've seen the scrappy Clippers. They've seen the scrappy Hawks, even against the Sixers, kind of come back from, big deficits and actually winning and upsetting the series. So we get Pat Connaughton like last game, nearly 30 minutes. They played the entire fourth quarter, I believe, with Giannis at the 5. We should see more of it. They need to go up 3-1, headed to Milwaukee, and win the East. That's just what should be on their minds. They shouldn't be sweating anything else. So 30 minutes, and you can get 11.5 points, rebounds plus assists. Especially if they are going small, I think there's going to be more opportunity for rebounding. Kind of counting on Bud to make the right decision from a rotation standpoint, but he's done it, and he just did it last game, and so that's what I anticipate. And then if it is a blowout, Trey doesn't play, whatever it may be, Pat Connaughton's going to be getting more minutes anyway in that direction. So a couple shots, an assist or two, and then hopefully he can get enough rebounds. But I think this goes over enough that it's worthwhile.
Pat Connaughton did a tremendous white man can't jump impression at the 2019 NBA All-Star Game dunk contest, brought down the United Center. That forever will endear him to my heart. Justin Phan, you're going to be up next. Evan Abrams, let's spin this wheel. Oh my God. It's Pat Connaughton again. 4.5 rebounds. Phan, are you over or under?
Oh, Pat Connaughton season. Let's go. I'm over.
Nice.
I have projected for 5.3. And, echoing some of what Preston said, Pat Connaughton's second on the Bucks in efficiency differential in this series. He's been really important for them. That smaller lineup, especially with Bud wanting to switch a lot more. He's going to be a big part of that as well. So I've been actually encouraged by what we've seen by Bud over the course of this series, adjusting his pick and roll coverage to better contain Trey and trimming his rotation accordingly, right? I mean, he's basically playing a 7.5 man rotation, played Pat Connaughton 32 minutes in game 3, which was really good. The Bryn Forbes minutes have not been pretty, especially with how he's shooting. I think he only played like 7 minutes last game. So it should be a tight rotation once again. Should see more Giannis at the 5, which means Pat Connaughton in there. So I like the over here at 4.5.
Here's what I love also. A lot of Coach Bud love. That is not something we've seen from anybody who follows the NBA in the playoffs the past couple of years. Acknowledging Coach Bud, making adjustments. It's classy. It's classy of all of us as analysts and experts. Like, I love what we're doing here. Evan, let's spin the wheel one more time and see where it lands for me. I am getting Drew Holiday steals 1.5 total. Guys, I'm going over because it's Drew Holiday, and he is the fiercest, scariest, best defender on the perimeter against point guards in the NBA. If Trae Young is at his best, I still think I take the over in this. If he's hobbled, that's going to impact his ball handling. If Drew Holiday is lining up against the second best ball handler for the Hawks, I'm going to be really comfortable about his ability to make some steals. And finally, he's had multiple steals in 32 of the 59 games he played in the regular season. And by the way, 2 of the 3 games in this series. So Drew Holiday over 1.5 steals. Who's with me? Who's with me? Can I get an amen, please? Anybody?
I'm not sure about that.
If we took a holiday, come on. Gosh. Let's celebrate.
I'm gonna say amen just so you can stop singing.
Stop singing whatever song.
Well, by the way, we do whatever it takes here to get.
Did you think that they stopped the feed or something?
To find consensus.
We're still live. We're still on air.
To find consensus, we'll do whatever it takes. All right, let's go to the final segment. We're gonna fade the public because guess what? You guys watching, you don't know anything. That's why you're watching. We put out a poll on the Twitter today. Will Trae Young have more or less, over or under 28.5 points? You guys weighed in. 64.7% of you are on the under. So let's see. Are we fading the public? Or are we with you guys? Preston, you're up first.
I will reiterate that you don't always need to throw money. It's fun. It's nice to have a little action here and there, but like this is a game that's just really tough to bet until we find out about Trae. And then this prop especially, there's so much room for error to the under, right? Because if he does tweak something or he does get injured during it, maybe they're switching more frequently, like Justin alluded to defensively, speaking about Milwaukee. Theoretically, I think from just a sheer numbers perspective, looking at if Trae is healthy, then I would be going over. In fact, I think the market actually, the number we did on the poll was 28.5. I know the market's now more like 27.5, juiced under. So it's going the other way. The public likes the under. All the injuries, everything else points to under, or the potential injury, re-injury. I like over. I think Trae Young gets it done. I'm going over. I'm fading the public. I'm fading you guys. Trae Young going to get that little shimmy, whatever he does whenever he drains threes on the road, even though he's in Atlanta playing at home. We're going to get a Trae Young game. I'm not calling it a flu game. It's a bone bruised game.
By the way, let's just be clear. Let's get the clips ready. Evan Abrams and Christina Ventura. Preston Johnson on the Hawks +7 and on Trae Young over 28.5. Fan, let's see if you and I can find consensus. What are you going to do?
I'm going to go under. I have it at 26.4. And look, I don't want to, like, Preston was right at the top. Like, you don't want to read too much into these injuries, but you look at all the quotes from Trae himself after game 3, they were concerning. He was saying he was still experiencing a lot of soreness. He had no explosion. He could not go as fast as he wanted to. And he was non-committal. Players are usually like shrugging these questions off. Like, yeah, I'm going to play. Like, are you kidding me? This is the playoffs. I'm going to play. And he was like, I'm going to get treatment and we'll see what happens. Right. So just from the quotes from Trae, how he looked in that fourth quarter, I think this is legitimate where it's concerning, where how I handled this in my projections. I docked him about a minute and a half. I docked his efficiency as well. I docked his usage rate as well. So we'll see. It's tough to really tell how healthy he truly is. Only he really knows that. But just from what I've seen, just from his quotes and how he looked in the fourth quarter, I don't think he's anywhere near 100%. So got to factor in, like I said, the risk of re-aggravation. There's a possibility he plays like 30 minutes or 28 minutes even, right? That's possible. So just accounting for all those range of outcomes, I'm going to go under, play it safe here, and we'll see. It would be great if we see a Trae game. Obviously, don't want to root against guys, especially when they're hurt, but I think the under is the right side.
Look, it's entirely possible that Nate McMillan plays this guy until his foot falls off because they need to win this game in order to stay anywhere in the series, and that he jacks up 35 shots and makes 10 of them and ends up going to the line 10 times, and he gets his 28.5, he gets his 30 points, whatever it is. But that's gambling. That's not making sharp, wise decisions. That's just throwing the money against the wall and saying, hey, everyone's going one way, I'm going this way. I am going with Fan on the under, and I just don't see Trae Young being that effective in this game. I honestly don't know that he will be able to play the whole game, given how bad that injury looked, even if everyone is saying he's okay right now. Give me Trae Young on the under. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to wrap it up right now. Preston, you were on the Hawks at +7. Ugh.
You're on Trae plays.
If Trae plays. Pat Connaughton, over 11.5 points, rebounds, and assists, and you're on Trae Young if he plays. I'll give you the point. You're over 27.5 points because that's where the market is right now.
Beautiful.
Fan, you're on the Hawks under 105.5 points team total. That is a brilliant bet. I love it. You're so smart. You're on Pat Connaughton, also over 4.5 rebounds, and you're on Trae Young under 28.5 points. I will give you what we put the poll out at, not what the market is at right now, because you're brilliant and a good person. And then I am going to be on the Hawks team total under 105.5 points because it's a great idea. I'm going to be on Drew Holiday over 1.5 steals. And I'm also going to be on Trae Young under 28.5 points. And guess what? When this is over tonight, and because it's early, I'll be able to understand and actually watch. Justin, you and I, you know what we're going to do?
Yes.
You know what we're going to do with our money? You know what we're going to do?
I'm not going to bed at 9. I'm not. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
You know what you and I are going to do? We're going to take a holiday.
Oh my goodness!
Come on.
I'll say this: we're the most aligned we've ever been on the show. And given your track record, I actually think you probably have the best record of any person on the show of the 2 shows. Yeah, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, you know why? I'm incredibly good at this. That's why. It's like I don't have to be doing projections in my spreadsheets all day to be able to follow the market, understand the trends, and know what the right side is. I am a genius bettor. This has been Heat Check, presented by BetMGM. Catch us again on Thursday evening. Matt Moore, Chris Raybon, Raheem Palmer. Until next time, folks.